Everyone says that stress is inevitable, a part of life you simply must endure. But what if I told you stress is like carrying a pebble in your pocket? You barely notice it at first, but if you keep adding more pebbles, they turn into a burden, one you weren't even aware you were carrying. What would happen when the weight becomes too much? We meet Sarah, a driven, ambitious woman who always prided herself on being able to handle everything life throws her way. With a successful career, demanding family life, and a constant need to prove herself, Sarah's life looks perfect on the outside. Yet, little by little, she feels the weight of stress creeping up on her. Small moments of unease that she dismisses as part of the daily grind. The story starts during a typical Monday morning, Sarah rushing through her packed schedule, ticking off task after task, and maintaining her sharp efficiency. She refuses to slow down, convincing herself that she can handle anything just as she always has. As the story progresses, Sarah begins experiencing signs that something isn't quite right. At first, it's subtle. She forgets small things, like where she put her keys or an important meeting. Then, a wave of anxiety hits her out of nowhere in the middle of a presentation, her heart pounding and hands shaking. She pushes through it, chalking it up to too much coffee and too little sleep. But these moments start coming more frequently. The harder she tries to push through, the heavier her invisible burden becomes. Stress, like those pebbles she ignores, continues to gather in her pockets. She still clings to the belief that she's strong enough to manage it on her own. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Sarah collapses onto her couch, her mind buzzing. Her phone dings with another email notification from work, and in that moment she realizes she can't breathe. It's as if the weight of the entire world is pressing down on her chest. She panics, and for the first time in her life, she admits it. She can't keep going like this. It's here that we see Sarah in her most vulnerable state. She feels defeated, but also ashamed. How can something as small as stress feel like it's destroying me? She thinks. She's been conditioned to think that only the weak crumble under pressure, and she hates that this is happening to her. In the middle of her breakdown, Sarah gets an unexpected visit from her childhood friend, Emily. Emily is the opposite of Sarah, calm, laid back, and content with a simpler life. Instead of offering typical advice, Emily reaches into her bag and pulls out a small pebble. "Stress is like this," she says, handing it to Sarah. "One pebble is light, nothing at all. But if you keep collecting them, it starts to weigh you down. The trick isn't to avoid stress, it's learning when to take the pebbles out." This analogy changes everything for Sarah. For the first time, she sees that her stress isn't something to be beaten or ignored, but something to manage. It's not a sign of weakness, but a signal that something in her life is out of balance. Emily teaches her techniques for recognizing stress early and managing it. Deep breathing exercises, mindfulness, and letting go of things beyond her control. Armed with a new mindset, Sarah begins to tackle her stress in ways she never thought possible. She starts small, learning to say no to tasks that are unnecessary, prioritizing her mental health and carving out time for self-care. The next time she feels the familiar weight of stress creeping up, she recognizes it before it overwhelms her. She takes a moment, pauses, and removes the pebble. But the journey isn't without setbacks. Sarah has moments where she slips back into old habits, overloading herself with too much responsibility. However, each time she becomes better at recognizing the signs earlier, learning that managing stress is an ongoing process, not a one-time fix. By the end of the story, Sarah has transformed her relationship with stress. She still has a demanding job and personal commitments, but now she approaches them with a sense of balance and awareness. She no longer views stress as a mountain to climb, but as something that can be handled one pebble at a time. She understands that it's not about erasing stress from her life, but managing it before it becomes too heavy to bear. Sarah's journey is a reminder that the weight of stress can be carried if we learn to lighten the load when it becomes too much. Stress is like carrying a pebble in your pocket. On its own, it's small and manageable, but ignore it long enough and you'll find yourself weighed down by an invisible burden you never saw coming. The key isn't to avoid collecting pebbles, it's knowing when to empty your pockets.